Good evening, and thank you for joining the Parent Impact. I'm your host, Tafshier Cosby, and this is presented in partnership with the National Parents Union. Happy spring, everybody! I'm so excited. We are in New Jersey, and it is 6 p.m., and it is still daylight outside. I'm super, super excited. I don't even have to turn my lamp on in this room. So I'm very, very excited that it is springtime. I don't want to jinx it. We know March comes in like a lion and out like a lamb, but I am really, really, really excited that it is springtime. And we are blossoming. People still make sure that you're covering your face, wearing your mask, and washing your hands. I know it's nice outside. People want to get out there. I heard kids outside playing. It was just like, I love the sound of kids being outside my window playing. They're just having so much fun being able to get some fresh air and being outside together. But just make sure that we are keeping our masks on and keeping that social distance because COVID is still around. So let's get into some of our updates for tonight. So for Newark, the city of Newark, the CDC eases distancing guidelines in classrooms. They're now saying that 3 feet is okay. They're revamping their physical distance guidelines in a shift that could encourage more students to open 5 days a week. So parents, how do you feel about that? Check in if you're in the comments. How do you feel about that shift from 6 feet to now 3 feet? In the effort to make sure that kids are getting back into the school building, they're going to be a little bit closer together, which means there are going to be more students in the classroom. So let us know how you feel about that, parents. Also, the Newark Board of Education has released the name of the candidates for the upcoming election, which is April the 20th. So that's coming up really, really soon. The first forum that was actually held was from the Newark NAACP. That was actually held on March the 18th. So if you can check that out on Facebook, there were, I think, 3 candidates who were not on the forum. But if you can check that out, it was a really good first forum. Get to know some of the candidates a little bit more. The second forum is going to be hosted April 6th. It's going to be hosted by the Newark Trust. So take a look at their website. They also usually have, for the candidates, they usually have bios. So you know a little bit about the candidates who are running. So check that out when you have a moment and learn more about the candidates that are running, the incumbents, the current board members who are running for re-election. Also, prior to April the 6th, if you want to get more information about understanding the roles and responsibilities of the school board district, that's tomorrow night, March 24th, 7 p.m. You can check out the Roots and Bridges Facebook page. That's going to be a really great conversation with some previous board members talking about their roles and responsibilities. So you can get to know a little bit more about what our school board members do, what their roles are supposed to be. So please check that out when you have a moment. So the current people who are running for the school board for the Newark Board of Education. So our current vice president, this is for the 3-year term, our current vice president, Dawn Haynes, newcomer, Verily Santana, and then Asia Norton. They are all running for a 3-year term. They are currently on the Newark Board of Education. Yolanda Johnson, Philip Wilson, and Nadira Brown. So those are all the candidates for the 3-year term for the Newark Board of Education. And then there's a special election. Unfortunately, rest in peace, Tave Padilla. He has his seat that's actually still available for 1 year, which is the remainder of his board seat. So the 2 candidates who are running for that special election are Sheila Montague and Daniel Gonzalez. So make sure that you vote in the Newark Board of Education election, April the 20th. If you live in Newark, please make sure that you cast your ballot. And as we say at the National Parents Union, every family votes in every election, every time. So make sure that you're casting your ballot and building that muscle, building that voting muscle to make sure that you're voting not just in your state elections or your federal elections, but that you are also paying attention to your local elections that are happening in your town. So for New Jersey, and this was interesting, I read this on NJ.com a few hours ago, that New Jersey minority communities, they want the COVID vaccine, but aren't able to get them. There's a new poll out that shows that a majority of New Jersey minority residents who are low income, they would like to get access to the vaccine. They would like to have it, but they're being inoculated at half the rate of whites and some of our richer New Jersey residents, which is interesting considering we're doing the testing in our areas. So the state COVID-19 dashboard disparities Our 59% of shots have gone to white residents, and 5% have gone to Black residents, and 7% to Hispanic, Latino, Asian communities as of Tuesday. But from what I hear, we have a lot more of our Black residents coming in, making sure they're getting the vaccine. It's being available. My first thought about that was the criteria for folks who were getting inoculated first, right? Doctors, nurses. That was kind of my first thought. But, New Jersey itself, within its own dashboard and data, is saying that there's a disparity. So let's close that gap and make sure that anyone who wants to get vaccinated is getting vaccinated, especially in our lower income communities and in our cities. And again, it's everyone's decision, right? You make the decision for your family as to whether that's something that's right for your family, something that's right for you. Everyone has the decision to make for their family. So please make sure you are making that decision and signing up to get that vaccine if that is something that you would like to have for your family. So super, super excited about tonight's guest. She and I had been seeing each other for like 2 years, right? At like different community events. We didn't know each other. We would always speak and be like, "Hey, girl, hey." We didn't know each other. We got to know each other at an event, and we've now seen each other in the communities. And she is an amazing wife and mom and advocate and author, and everyone in the city of Newark knows her and loves her. So please, let's welcome to tonight's Parent Impact, Mrs. Zelma Crump. Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm good. I am good. Thank you so much for being tonight's guest on the Parent Impact. We really appreciate you coming by and talking to us tonight.
You're welcome, and I thank you for having me.
Thank you. I miss you in the community though, right? Like I said, we was like seeing each other all the time, and then we weren't. So I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
getting back out there in the community where we actually get to see each other at different events around the city.
Yeah.
So thank you for being the advocate that you are. And I like to check in with my guests at the beginning of our conversation. How are you and your family doing in this COVID-19 pandemic?
So I would say now we are doing fine, but everyone knows that this is something new to everyone.
Yes.
So like my family, I was telling you earlier, like my family and I, we were affected by COVID. My husband had it. Our joke is I say that he gave it to me. He claims I gave it to him. But either way, we had it and the kids had it. So that was in the beginning of this pandemic. Other than that, the whole virtual school is serious. It's tough,
Yeah.
it's hard, but I can say, always say that we have ups and downs, but we're maintaining now. So we're doing well.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad that you guys are feeling better.
Yes.
I know for a lot of places that have opened up, a lot of different states that have opened up, right? They're just like, hey, it's going. Like, hey, because we decide it's going, it's going. But we
Yeah.
know that's not the case, right? It's still here. People still have to protect themselves and they still have to make sure that they are washing their hands and keeping their mask on. And I also heard a few weeks ago from a doctor that you can get it twice. And I was like, no, that's not good. Like that's
Yeah.
not a good thing, right? At all. Like once is enough. No one
Yeah.
needs to have it twice. So
And I
I'm glad
will.
that you guys are doing better.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm really happy that you guys are doing better. So let's talk about your journey as a parent. You are a mom to Cecil and Marguerite,
Yes.
and also your journey as a parent with children with challenges. So let's talk a little
Yes.
bit about your journey.
Okay. So my daughter Marguerite, she's 10 years old. Lovely little girl. I love her to death. And we have Cecil. Cecil's 7. He's about to be 8. So Marguerite has ADHD and Cecil has autism and he has ADHD as well. Um, I'll start off with talking about Cecil first.
Okay.
So Cecil, I never knew anything about autism. Like I heard about it, and my definition of autism is so ignorant that I can't even tell you. That's how embarrassed I am of it. But I knew nothing of it. So I remember taking, like, I would have to take Cecil to different doctors. Cecil was about 2. No, Cecil was 3. He wasn't talking at all. He was hitting other kids in his school. Um, he was biting other students. Like the teachers would call us. My husband would have to leave out and go get him.
Mm.
So I just didn't know what was wrong because, again, I don't know anything about autism. So I remember one day at the developmental doctor, she said, "So, do you think your son has autism?" And I just chuckled, like, "No, not my son." But
Right.
she said that she wanted to have him evaluated. So after that, he was evaluated. And then I went home and I started reading about autism. And
Mm-hmm.
I was in awe. I'm like, oh my goodness, everything I read was everything that my son was doing. So I knew before he was evaluated, I knew that my son was autistic. And I'm okay
Okay.
with that as well.
Okay.
So
Okay.
once he was diagnosed, that's when I became this advocate. I had to start advocating for him.
That's
And I
right.
don't only advocate for him, but there's other parents that I'm advocating for them and their children as well. And then with my daughter, I told you she has ADHD. Again, I don't know anything about this stuff. My daughter, that's my first child. And I always knew that I kept on telling my sister, like, I don't know, Alice, something. I just don't know. I don't know what it is. I couldn't put my finger on it. So
Mm-hmm.
I remember like the end of second grade, her teacher kept saying she cannot complete her any assignments. She can't stay on task and she's not focused. But again, I don't know anything about this stuff. So I think it's very important, like you still read up on these things so you can know when it actually happens to you. So I don't know anything about ADHD. So I knew that in second grade, but in third grade, finally I said, okay, I have to do something. So I requested for her to be evaluated through her school system, but then also I took her to the developmental doctor, and then she was diagnosed as well with ADHD.
Okay. And I think that's usually the beginning of most parents' advocacy, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's the beginning, right? When you think about your child in school and you think about developmentally, what's happening with your child, especially if it's not, a challenge that you've been exposed to, right? In your
Yeah.
family or maybe through other friends who have children. And I think that's absolutely where the advocacy starts for families, right? It's okay. My child now has this challenge, right? So I have to, first off, I have to like say like yes, I'm okay with this, and then the second part of that is how do I now help my child, right? Like what is my role now as the parent to make sure that I'm getting and doing all the things that I need to do for my child to make sure that they will be okay when they go to school. Or they will be okay even before they go to school, right? Like they will be okay to make sure that they can do the things that they absolutely need to do. Yeah.
Yeah. And also to add on to that, once Cecil was diagnosed, not even when he was diagnosed, but he had an IEP before he was diagnosed. But that's when I started going to all these different events. That's how I ran into you. But I was
Yeah.
at all these different events, but you have to educate yourself on this stuff because at
Yes.
different events, they teach you things about the IEPs, things that you're not going to know, that they're not going to really tell you. So it's important to go to these different events, different meetings, any meetings, even though you might feel like this is so pointless, you have to show up. That lets them know that this is a parent that really cares.
Absolutely. And you're invested in trying to find the best ways to be able to help your child, right? And in
Yeah.
Newark, there are lots of different opportunities for parents to find out this information. Like you said, some of the SPAN meetings. We have the Newark CPAC group, which is amazing. I would love to have them on if you guys are watching. I would love to have you guys come on and talk about the amazing work that you are doing. And then you have other parent advocates in the community, right? Like we always run into each other and bump into each other and you really have to start meeting other parents out in these spaces so you can really have that shared camaraderie with other parents because it's difficult. It's difficult feeling like you're alone in this space, and especially if you haven't been exposed to this from any other avenue, from family members or any other friends' kids. It can be sometimes a lonely space unless you start to connect with other advocates.
Yeah. And also, once you start connecting, like they become family as well. You, like you said, you know that you're not alone. They're able to help you, able to share your story with each other, and it becomes a support system as well too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that. I love the support that we get in the city of Newark, from all of our families. Also for our families, for any child who has an IEP or 504, I didn't put it here, but there actually is a special education parents resource guide. If you look it up online for the state of New Jersey, it's a full-on booklet. It gives you a lot of information about your role as a special education parent, your role in IEP meetings, it just really helps to read through it and really have that confidence when you go into those meetings. So you really understand the accommodations that your child needs to have, right? And then your power as a parent to be able to go into that meeting with that information and make sure that your children are getting what they need to get. Because my son was actually diagnosed with ADD when he was in middle school. I didn't know about that booklet, but I knew as a parent, what I had learned about ADD was that I could go in and ask for, specific accommodations, for my child and make sure that the school was following them and make sure that my son had what he needed to be successful in school.
Yeah.
So parents, please, in New Jersey, please check that out. That's a good tool and guide to be able to have. So, what was your catalyst for writing your amazing book? If you have a copy there, if you wouldn't mind showing it to us, I'm waiting for mine to come on Amazon. Amazon is hit or miss these days. I don't know what's happening. So, the title of the book, you know what? I'll let you do the title of the book.
Okay. So this is the book. I carry this book in my purse. So this is my beat up copy, but I carry it around with me like every day. This is Cecil, the Greatest Brother, an Autism Awareness book. So I always wanted to write a children's book. When I was in college, my major was English. So this was like my big goal. So I just never could write a book though. I never could come up with a story in my head. I would start writing Margie and Cecil's series, but I just couldn't finish it. It just didn't make sense. It just wasn't good at all. But then one day I don't know, the light bulb just went off and I'm like, okay, I have a story. So maybe it's not meant for me to write a story about Margie and Cecil going to grandma's house, but it's meant for me to share my story that can help others. So Cecil, the Greatest Brother is about, it's my daughter telling the story. And the thing about autism just does not affect just the child that has autism. It affects the whole family. But really, you have to think about the sibling or the other siblings because, well, in our case, it's just Marguerite. But Marguerite feels left out a lot of times. And it's because she feels as if Cecil gets everything. Cecil can do whatever he wants and he gets away with it. So I wrote a book with her describing how she feels about her brother, how she feels about, like, in the book, I talk about Cecil is acting bad. And because he starts to scream, he hits the wall and he hits mommy. So the mommy in the book says, oh no, he's not being bad. Like, he's not being bad. He just has autism. He's having a meltdown right now. So,
Yeah.
so is Marguerite just telling how she feels? She's sharing her journey. What was the second part of the question? I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just rambling.
No. That was great. I mean, it was really just like your catalyst, and we know your catalyst. Like you said, was to write it from your daughter's perspective because it's not just the child with the challenges; it's the entire family, right? Everyone needs it. It affects everyone, right? The challenge affects everyone in the household.
Yeah, and also to add on to that, and then I also wanted to educate other people about it because, like, I've
Yeah.
heard things before, but saying, "Oh, wow, your child is bad," but no, he's not bad. My child is just special needs. He's having a moment. Like sometimes other people, they
Yeah.
have moments, but they don't act out. I'm not gonna say act out. They don't have their moments as the same way Cecil does. But I just wanted to educate people, just to know, like, sometimes when you see a child out and they're making a loud noise, not to stare at them,
Right.
not to like try to shame the parent because there's a lot of shaming, unfortunately, with special needs families. But the whole purpose is
Yeah.
to share Marguerite's story and also just to educate and just let people know that there's nothing to be ashamed about because some people are embarrassed about
Yeah.
their child being on the spectrum.
Yeah. And I love that you're sharing this from your daughter's perspective. It's tough as a parent of multiple children, right? Even when they don't have challenges, right? To make sure that you are giving that attention to each of the children and making sure that, they feel good in their own space, but also making sure that they understand what's happening with their sibling that may have challenges, right? Because they end up becoming um part of the conversation, right? Even sometimes I'm thinking like when you're out, right? Like your daughter can answer questions that people ask, right? Because you've educated her on the
Yeah,
challenges that her brother, now faces.
yeah.
And I
And then
think that's important. Hmm.
yeah. And also I just wanted to add, I talk about in the book Marguerite, and I don't think she really feels this way now, but in the past, like, she has been embarrassed. And I don't like, she's embarrassed of her brother's actions and like how sometimes he'll be stimming. And stimming is like with their hands, they run back and forth, they'll make loud noises. And that's okay for her to feel that way. Like, I don't get up saying like you shouldn't be embarrassed. Like, no, these are your thoughts. It's okay. So we talk about
That's
it.
right. That's right. And I love that you open this up for other families, right? To have this conversation with other families, with themselves, and saying like, let's talk about this, right? Especially sometimes in our African American communities, right? Sometimes we want to keep it a secret. We don't want to really say what's happening to our children. But I love that you wrote this as an opportunity to educate people, and also, to say as a family, like, we're proud, right? We're proud parents. This is our child. We love him, and we want to make sure that we are doing everything that we need to do to make sure that he has growth, and that he also, is feeling great about himself. I mean, think about him as he gets older, right? Knowing there's a book about him. Like he's like, yes, like, yes, I'm Cecil, right? That book is about me. It's about the things that my sister saw, the things that me and my sister have done together, and I love that. I love that you're sharing your family and your family life, with everyone. So thank you so much for sharing that, and writing this book, and continuing to be an advocate, not just for your children, but for all the children, in our city, because we need more advocates, right? We need more parents out here who are using their voices, and using their power to be able to not only help their families, but to be able to help other families. So, and that's what we're all about here. We're all about making sure that we are working together as a community to help each other as much as we can, for sure. So let me
And
ask you. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And I just wanted to add on to that. Like, I'm affiliated with a certain circle, and I've been affiliated with this circle for decades. But after I started coming out and talking about Cecil and autism, all of a sudden, now people who I've known for over 20 years, all of a sudden they're like, oh, my child has autism. I'm like, what? I've known you for this long? And now people are coming up talking to me, but people have kept these things as a secret.
Right.
But there's like, from day one, like anyone who talks to me, like the first conversation would come out. My son has autism. My daughter has ADHD. Both of my children have IEPs. That's like every conversation. I'm not ashamed. And
That's right.
yeah, I just want to, I talk about it. That's all.
That's right. And it opens the door for conversation, like we said, right? You start to build that community. It's
Mhm.
about building a community of like-minded parents, and parents who are having challenges with their children, because it can be a lonely space, to feel like you're alone in the space, having to deal with these challenges and having to learn, all that you have to learn, and opening up with each other. It really starts to build that community, and we need more parent communities. Like I said, we have some great organizations in New Jersey and in Newark, CPAC, the SPAN organization. They do some great trainings and great opportunities for parents to come together. So if you're a parent, right, in the city of Newark or in the Newark surrounding area, and you have a child with challenges, there's a place for you, right? There's a space for you, and there's a book. There's a book now, right, that you can read to learn more about, the challenges that other families are having. So you can feel that connectedness, for sure. So let me ask you a question. I know right now, for some schools, across the country, not just in Newark and in New Jersey, but across the country, a lot of students who have IEPs and 504s are not getting all of the services that they need. So, what grade would you give, your schools, or what you're feeling about children receiving the services that they are supposed to be receiving in this COVID environment through school?
Okay, so I can say for my children, this is just my story, but for my children, they're receiving all of their services. So I would give them an A. Matter of fact, like my son, I believe it's way too much. Like he's getting pulled out about 6, 7 times a day for all, not a day, a week for his services. But they're definitely giving their services, both of them. But
Okay.
I would say, so I give them an A. I would
Okay.
say last year, now when the pandemic first started, my daughter, they were in different schools. My daughter, she always received her services. My son has a lot more services, but at first he was not receiving any services at all. And then
Okay.
but I would say maybe, this is the pandemic. This is something new to everyone. So I know that everyone wasn't prepared, but after a month, then he started to receive his services.
Okay. Okay. And did you have to do any extra advocacy for that, for your children to receive their services?
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. Because I know there are some families who, they had to do some extra advocacy. They had to call some folks on the phone. They had to threaten some lives, to make sure that their kids were getting,
Yeah.
those extra services that they needed. So if anybody's watching and you have any questions for Zelma, please put them in the chat. We will make sure that she, gets those questions so we can answer your questions.
Can I
So
I'm
Sure.
sorry, can I just add one more thing? I would say, with advocating for your children, I told you how Cecil, he's pulled out 6, 7 times a week, but when he's pulled out, he still has to like make up that work. So their work
Okay.
is due Friday. So I had to reach out to the teacher. I'm like, no, he's not going to be able to turn in his work on Friday because he's getting behind. He still has to do the extra classes plus the work anyway that he's already assigned. So now his work is due 2 days later on Sunday PM, Sunday night.
Okay.
So I had to ask for that. But if you don't ask for things, they're not going to offer it.
Absolutely. You don't know what that accommodation, needs to be. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. I didn't know that the students, the kids that get like pulled out for services, that they still have to make up like the extra work, well, the work that they would normally have to do outside of the services. That's interesting.
So maybe they don't, but Cecil, Cecil's the type of student like
Okay.
Cecil, mind you, he has straight A's, so he's a straight A student, but he's the type of person that maybe a week or 2 weeks ago he came into my room at 3 in the morning. I made the mistake of putting Google Classroom on his phone, and he had a missing assignment. So
Okay.
he woke me up at 3 in the morning to tell me about his missing assignment. So he's the type of student that even his work is supposed to be modified, but
Okay.
he wants to do it all.
Okay. Okay. And I no doubt that comes from yourself and your husband and your family, right? It comes from like tenacity, and just your personality of making him, that kind of student where he's like, I want to see excellence, right? Like I want to get it done and I'm going to do what I need to do.
Oh, he gets that from my husband. He does not get that from me. I'll give that to my husband. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. Stand up for your husband. Mr. Crump, are you watching this? Stand. That's right. Get that love. Get that love in.
But and
So,
also, I'm sorry, and
mhm.
also for like Marguerite, she's allowed to turn her work in late. So I did make that modification for her as
Okay.
well.
Okay. My son actually had that same modification when he was actually in middle school. And interestingly, when he got to high school, and this is something that I didn't know when he first got to high school, was that the school rules did not allow for any of the high school students to turn in their work late. So for his freshman year, I'm an advocate, and I did not know that his 504 superseded the school's rules, right? So he was turning in late, and he was getting like those low marks and those low grades, and we were fighting all the time, and I'm like, you gotta turn it in. And I knew this was a challenge for him, but I was like, you have to turn it in. You're getting these low grades. But then when I found out that the 504 and the IEP supersedes all other rules, is when the advocate came back out, right? And I was like, listen, this is part of his 504. This is something that he needs, and it supersedes all the other rules and things that are happening in the school. So that's something to remember, parents, right? Like the 504 and the IEP supersedes even the general school rules when it comes to your child actually having that piece of paper and making sure that the school is giving them the accommodations that they need. So that's just a small tip for me, that's something I didn't even know, right? And I mean, I feel like I'm a okay advocate, for my
You're
son.
more
And
than
that's something that
okay.
I didn't even know. I was like, oh, whole year we were fighting for no reason, fighting and we didn't even have to be, and I'm just like, and he was, not doing the homework and not getting what he needed. So just a small tip, parents, that those documents supersede all other things. Um, so we talked about what are other ways that you envision your impact of your book on families and communities, other than just getting out the word and educating them. Like any other words you envision the impact?
Um, so I know that a lot of people they used to call me up and they're like, I want to order this book for my friend. My friend has their child has autism. I want them to have this book. So that's nice, but real like of course I want those families to have it, but I really want people who were like me, who did not know anything about
Right.
autism. I want them to read the book so they can understand. I want people to be compassionate and to have understanding. At the
Yeah.
end, I wrote something in my book. Do you mind if I read it? Because that would
Absolutely.
answer your question.
Please.
So, I wrote, I hope you have a better understanding of autism. Remember to always be kind, never laugh at anyone because they are different, and never stare at anyone. Always offer a helping hand if someone needs assistance. Being kind goes a long way. So my impact is just
Yeah.
for people to be compassionate, to have understanding, and to embrace autism.
Yeah. I love that. I love
Thank
that. So remember that, everyone. I love that. That's so awesome. I love it. So make sure when you get the book, you take that, you take what Zelma's saying to heart, right, and make sure that you incorporate it into your life, not just for your family, but also other families. So how can families be more empowered and active in their communities and more engaged in their kids' education? Like, what are some tips you would give some parents?
you. Be involved when it comes to your child's education. Like you see these memes on Facebook. Like now people are getting stimmies. They say if you check your IRS account several times a day, check your children's grades several times a day. But I
That's right.
do that. So as much as you're on like Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, do the same thing. Like I get on my children's Google Classroom several times a day. They're Power School. Like I know their grades. I don't need the teacher to tell me. I already know what's going on. So treat like Facebook the same way that you treat
Yeah,
your children's Google Classrooms the same way you would do Facebook, but just to be involved, like show up to meetings. I remember, and this was years ago. And my daughter, she's now in the fifth grade. She was in the second grade at this time, and they sent out a letter to the parents saying, "Please come to this meeting," because it was a shooting outside the school.
mm,
So I went to this meeting. Now, do you know how many parents came to this meeting?
I can imagine. Probably 4 or 5.
It was one parent.
Oh my gosh, that's even worse.
I was so shocked. I was the only parent there. And my child, she didn't even experience this, but I wanted to like know what is going on because just because my child didn't see it, I still care for the other children there. And that's
That's
why a
right.
lot of times, yeah, I speak up. And I'm just not speaking up for my children. I'm speaking up for the other children too.
That's
But
right.
when it comes to your child's education, be involved. Like I go to meetings sometimes, I'm like, why am I in this meeting? Like I know my husband, sometimes I drag him out. He and I, we took this parent course together. And I'm like, why am I here? But if you show up, they know that you care,
Yeah,
that you're a parent that's involved, that they can't play games with you. And
that's right.
also to get involved in your community. Like I live here in Newark. My husband, he's lived here for he's lived here for a long time. I lived here for a long time. But this is our community. Both he and I, we are both district leaders. We love our community. We're raising our kids in this community. So we want to be involved. And by us being involved, we're teaching our children to get involved and also giving back to the community and doing community service as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, that's how we met, right? We met out in the community, different meetings. We would see each other in different places, wave, hey girl. And then we like got to know each other. And parents, reminder, a lot of those meetings are now happening virtually, right? Don't think just because the outside is closed, right, that these things are not happening. These meetings are happening virtually. You can insert yourself. You can be part of the conversation. You can learn what's happening with your child's education. When my son was in school, we used to do Power School and pizza. So like Friday night was our time to because otherwise, I don't know about any parents who use Power School, but checking it every day will drive you crazy. Like that will literally drive you crazy because the teacher's not putting in grades every day and the
Yeah,
grades are changing like one point and you're just like freaked out and you're like yelling at your kid and they're like, ah. So,
guilty.
I picked that was me. I literally was like a self-professed Power School like crazy woman. So I would pick one day, which would be like Friday nights. It was Power School and pizza. We would order pizza and we would go through the Power School grades and we would, see what was missing, making sure that we were accounting for everything, see what the grades were looking like, and that was a lot calmer. It was a better system for us, right? It was a lot calmer. It was just really, an opportunity for us to, for the end of the week, right? He doesn't have school on Saturday, for us to really just sit and talk about it. Because if you look at it every day, it will drive you insane. And that's just, my own personal like craziness that I did with Power School. Although I think Power School is an amazing tool. That is not something that I actually had with my older kids. I didn't have the ability to go in and check grades and like communicate with the teacher. So parents, please use Power School to like your advantage, right? Like use it, have those conversations with your kids, and use it as a communication tool to be able to talk with your parents. I mean, talk with your student, talk with your teachers, right? Send those messages back and forth to your teachers so they know
Yeah.
that you are completely involved. in your kid's school, and they know that they can't, push you to the side because they feel like you're not an involved parent. They know that you're there, and they know that you are asking questions and that you are having these conversations with your children. So I think you have a fan out here. Uh,
I see.
I think that would be your husband. Actually, you know what? I normally don't move out of this site, but now I need some light in this room. So I think you have a fan. Your other half here is checking you out. Thank you, Mr. Crump, for joining us tonight. Latrice said her son says Power School and Pizza is cool. It was it was a great way to kind of like bring the tension down when you're talking about your kids' grades, and really an opportunity to have that conversation and hold that space to have those hour or hour and a half with your child, talk about those grades, find out what's going on, and really get to a better like point, especially now when we're in COVID. God bless all the parents in COVID. Like, God bless y'all. Like, truly, God bless y'all. um it's a lot. It's a lot to have to deal with COVID and schooling and all the things that are happening. So I just send all the parents all of my love all of the time, and anything that I can do to help, please reach out, let me know. I think Zelma's, also the same, right? If there's ways that she can help, please reach out to her. I don't know if she wanted to put her email address on here, so I didn't put it on here, but I can always add it later.
You can.
I
It
didn't know if
doesn't
you
matter.
wanted.
You can.
Okay, I'll add your email address. So, if you're looking for an advocate, if you're looking for someone to help, if you're looking for a community space, right? Zelma is one of our community members, one of our amazing parent advocates. And, she would work with you. She'll work with you. She'll make sure that, you have the information you need. You can buy a copy of her book. You can do, a book night, right? I'm really big on book clubs, right? If you have a community of parents who want to buy the book and want to just kind of have like this book club conversation and build this online virtual community of parents, I'm down for that. Let me know. I will come. I will host. Right? And we will make sure that we are continuing to build this community. So um last question of the night. I know we can talk all night because y'all know I can talk. We can talk all night. But last question of the night is, what is your parent impact? What do you feel like has been your parent impact so far, and your parent impact for the future?
So my parent impact is I want my children to know that I'm always going to be here for them. I'm always going to support them, and I'm always going to advocate for them. And with that, I'm teaching my daughter right now, like, to start advocating for yourself. So, because mommy's not
Yes.
going to always be here anyway, but although I'm saying I'm always going to be here, but I'm not going to always be here. But I want you to be able to speak up for yourself now. And I don't know, at 10 years old, I really wasn't taught to start speaking up, standing up for yourself. So I want her to start doing that now. So when she's in her IEP meeting, I just started this. She's attending those IEPs meetings as well. Like, this is her IEP. You need to
Yes,
sit here, tell us if you like this, if you don't like this. So I just
that's
want my
right.
children to know that I'm always here for them. And I mentioned earlier, not only am I advocating for my own kids, but I'm going to advocate for other kids as well. If I see something, I'll speak up. If I don't like it, I'll speak up. Every child, it's sad, every child doesn't have someone who's there to support them or someone who can advocate for them. And also for parents, some parents don't know how to advocate. And one thing about being one thing about advocating for your child, you don't have to have a degree. You don't even have to have proper grammar. All you have to do is love your children, want what's
Yes,
best for them, and to stand up for them. And like I said, if you see a problem, if there's something that you don't like or agree, you have to say something. If you don't say anything, they're never going to come to you and say, okay, I think we should do this. So just speak up. And also,
that's
I
right.
always say, and always remain respectful. Because sometimes people speak up, but remain respectful, please.
It's all in the way that you speak up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get what they say: you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. And like we talked about earlier, right? Like knowing your rights as a parent, knowing your power as a parent, right? Knowing what you bring to the conversation when it comes to talking with the teachers, when it comes to talking to the school administrators, when it comes to talking to, just anybody who's in the life of your child, especially in their education. Your voice is important. Your voice is, I feel like parents are the second stakeholders in the conversation when it comes to education, right? The first stakeholders are the children. They are experiencing this education firsthand. It's their experience. So we as the second stakeholders, our voices are just as important as theirs, making sure that they get the things that they need, um, and making sure that they have what they need to grow, and what they need for their education. Because we only get one time to do this, right? K to
Yeah.
12 goes so fast.
Yeah.
You think about how fast they're growing and how fast they go from pre-K to kindergarten, and you blink and that's it. They've graduated, and they're off to college or off to work, and living their life. Um, and it just goes fast. So we have to make sure that we are being advocates for our children. And if we have the capacity, to make sure that we're being advocates for other families who
Yeah.
don't know this information. So
And
thank you
also,
so much. Oh, go.
I'm sorry. All of a sudden, I just want to say all this stuff at the last minute. But it's important, like you said, to know your rights. And it's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know. I only know like little stuff, but I'm learning more and more. And one of the therapists, they sent me an email saying that Cecil's gonna have to do more of OT and all this stuff, and the schedule's changing. But with his schedule changing, he will have to come out of reading class early. But I had to email her back, and then I emailed everybody and their mama, and I emailed them to let them know
Okay.
that you cannot change my son's IEP without us having a meeting. Which I would have never known that if I never like went to these other meetings to learn that. But by the end of this email, I received an email. They apologized to me, saying that the schedule will stay the same. So it's just important, even if you don't know everything, learn, make relationships so other
Yes.
people can help you out. Like I already know like people who I can call, and I can call you if I need help.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's important to build relationships. And then also my parent impact, my last part of that question is for moms and dads, we have to take care of ourselves. Like everyone knows, self-care is this new thing, but you
Yes.
cannot take care of your children if you can't take care of yourself. So it took me all these years just to learn that. Like I was getting overwhelmed. Like sometimes it was just really bad, but I have to take care of myself. So I have to take care of Zelma. However that is, like for some people, if you need to go to therapy, then
Yeah.
do that. If you just need to take a break and not do a single thing, that's part of self-care. If you just want to lay on the couch, but you have to take care of yourself. To be the best mother or dad, you have to really do the self-care.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't pour into an empty cup, right? I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
If your pitcher's empty, you can't pour into anyone else, and you
Yeah.
absolutely can't be and have that energy to make sure that you are, doing the advocating for your kids. A lot of times in our communities, uh, Black and brown families in our communities get the rap of they don't care about their kids because they don't show up, right? But we have families in our community who are working 2 and 3 jobs. They're trying to keep food on the table. They're trying to keep a roof over their head, and that is absolutely a myth. I say that all the time. That's absolutely a myth that Black and brown parents in our communities do not care about our kids' education, because
Yeah,
we
we
care just
care.
as much as everyone else. And trust and believe, right? If there was time, more time of the day, right? If there were 36 hours, in the course of a day, where we were trying to fit everything in there to make sure that we are doing what we need to do, we absolutely would. So we do care, right? But sometimes, like you said, you need to take some of that time for yourself, because you can't be effective advocate for your child if you're not effectively advocating for you, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to think about what it is that you need to make sure that you're giving that to your family. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This was so, so great. So, so great. Thank you so much. It was so good to see you. And like I said, I'll be happy when we get to see each other in person again, out here in
Yeah.
these streets, right? At these meetings, advocating. But we can also do it virtually, right? There's still opportunities to do this virtually. Parents, get in the mix, get into those conversations, make sure that you are advocating for your children, especially your children who have special needs. Cecil, the Greatest Brother, an autism awareness book in paperback. You can purchase it on Amazon.com. Please make sure that you go and grab this book either for yourself or someone that you know who would benefit from having this information, getting more information about an autism awareness, and also from a lens as a sister, right? It's a sibling book. It's a book about love. It's a book about siblings together, like learning together and being in a family together. So please make sure you are getting this book. Like I said, I'm serious about that book club. So if anybody wants to start a book club with this book, purchase it. Let's put it together. Let's be able to talk about this as a community. And let's be able to make sure that we're showing love to Zelma and Cecil and Marguerite and to Mr. Crump. So thank you so much. It was so amazing to have you on tonight. I hope we can do this again.
Thank
I
you.
hope we can
Yes.
get you back on when you write your second book.
Well, actually, I have the second book, but I have to work a little bit more on it. So, like,
Okay.
it's completed, but I just don't like the way it is right now. But yes.
Okay. We will definitely make sure we have you back on. So thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate you taking your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.
You too. Whew, another great episode of the Parent Impact. Thank you, everyone, for coming by. This was an amazing conversation. I love Zelma. She is an amazing advocate. She's an amazing community member. She does so much for the community. Like I said, everybody knows her. She's always out in the community. I got to shout out her Zeta Phi Beta sorors. My cousin threatened me. No. I have to shout out to her sorors out here, blue and white out here doing the thing, and they also are doing amazing things for our community. So, thank you again to Zelma for coming on tonight, learning more about autism. Please make sure that you check out the book, Cecil the Greatest Brother, Autism Awareness Book. Check that out. Buy it for yourself. Buy it for someone in your family. Buy it for a community member who wants to know more about autism. Again, make sure that you are following the Board of Education, right? If you want to know more information, understanding the rules and responsibilities of a school board, school district board on Facebook tomorrow, March 24th, 7 p.m. on the Roots and Bridges Facebook page. Also, the Newark Board of Education Candidate Forum, the second one, is going to be on Tuesday, April the 6th at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Learn more about the candidates who are running. It's important that you're getting out there, learning more about the Newark Board of Education. These people are making decisions for you as a community, even if you don't have kids in K to 12 school. Decisions are still being made that affect your property taxes. So make sure that you are learning. Tomorrow, our federal government is voting on the largest comprehensive act to overhaul voting that has ever been. It's called For the People Act. They are voting on it tomorrow. Check out more information about it at whenweallvote.org. Again, National Parents Union, we're talking about voting for our school board for the city of Newark. Every family votes in every election, every time. Start to build that muscle up to make sure that you are voting in every election, not just your federal election, not just your state election, but you are voting in your local election. Zelma is a district leader, right? Make sure you are voting even in those district leaders. And for my people in North, check out that district leader list. There are some vacancies on there, right? There shouldn't be any vacancies. There should be every one of those district leader positions should be filled with people who are in the city, who want to make a difference, who want to make a change to their community, and are really out here being public servants. So please make sure that you check out that list. And also, if you haven't joined, please join the National Parents Union. I meant to say that Zelma is actually one of our National Parent Union members. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you. We have lots of different exciting things coming up. We're actually going to be having a convening on May the 15th. But you won't get that information unless you join. It's going to be virtual. It's going to be amazing. So please make sure if you haven't already, please join the National Parents Union. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Enjoy the springtime. Mask up. Make sure that you're washing your hands and be safe out there, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. Thanks. Have a good